Hey everybody, in today's video we're going to be reviewing the Craftsman M100 push lawnmower. This is a lawnmower built for medium to very small type yards, residential areas, that kind of thing. In this review we're going to go over a few things. We're going to talk about the specs of the lawnmower itself. We're going to compare it to other lawnmowers of comparable size such as the Hyper Tough lawnmower by Walmart, and we're going to give a demonstration on one, how to operate it, and two, what it actually looks like when it's cutting grass. And then finally at the very end I'm going to give you my overall impressions and review of the lawnmower. And if there's anything that you did not hear that you would like to hear in this video for an update or something like that, please drop it in the comments, let us know. And if you do enjoy this video at the end, go please like the video, go ahead, subscribe if you want to see more of this stuff. Anyways, enough of my chit chat, let's get after it. Hey guys, today we're going to be reviewing the Craftsman M100 push lawnmower. This is a lawnmower built for smaller yards. It is not a self-propelled or anything, and it's pretty much one of your bottom line type lawnmowers when it comes to cutting grass. Just for anyone's reference, I did review a Hyper Tough lawnmower from Walmart like 4 years ago. I did a 1-year update. That lawnmower is actually still running, but the blades are starting to get really dull on it, and honestly, replacing the blades on that lawnmower, I might as well just get a new one, which is exactly what I did. Now this Craftsman M100 was actually gifted to me from a friend who just no longer wanted it. Still basically brand new, and I've been using it for the past couple weeks. I'm going to share with you my thoughts and my opinion on whether or not it is worth getting. Just to get a few specs out of the way, this is a gas operated lawnmower. It is a 21-inch cut, and it is a rotary type blade system. Now price-wise, depending on where you get it from, this lawnmower is going to cost anywhere between $320 to around $400. That's what I'm seeing across the internet. But we're going to go ahead and evaluate just how good this lawnmower is and see if it's worth the extra spend up from maybe your super cheap version like that Hyper Tough. So here I just want to kind of give you a side-by-side comparison between the Hyper Tough lawnmower from Walmart and this Craftsman lawnmower. And I'll try not to get my shadow in the way of anything, but that's about the size difference you see. And honestly, when I first look at it, the very first thing I notice is one, obviously the blades are bigger on this lawnmower than the Hyper Tough, and at the same time you have these giant monster tires right here that honestly I thought was kind of cheesy, but as I started using it, they actually helped a lot when it came to going over maybe some of the tougher parts of the yard and getting over various things. The reason why I say that is because if you look over there on the Hyper Tough, you got these tiny little tires, which really shouldn't make that big of a difference. They're not really even tires, they're more like wheels. But when you are going over rougher terrain, because obviously most lawns are not flat and there are dips and stuff, it would just make it that much more difficult because these are not self-propelled lawnmowers. They are both, you know, man-pushed or whatever you want to call it, man-powered. You gotta push them. There is no self-propel here. But these larger tires made it way easier to go over a yard and actually made cutting the yard much, much faster than they previously were. So going over just how to operate this lawnmower, basically just a few things. Very, very simple, easy to use lawnmower. I mean, almost anybody with common sense can come out here and pretty much grab this thing and start working it fresh out of the box. Basically what you're looking at is you got your, right over here, this is how you adjust your tires. Like on most lawnmowers, very, very easy to use. Not difficult at all. You got the same thing over here on the back end. You have collapsibility for whenever you're trying to move this around and you want to maybe move to a different house, move it to a different location. So you do have collapsibility there. You got a nice little brush guard back here for safety, so that way nothing kicks back up and flies on you. Then over here you got your discharge area. I got this thing shut up so that way it just kind of stays that way. I do believe this one can come with a bag to go ahead and attach. I personally don't have one, so I'm not using it. You have your area right over here for your oil. Once again, it's always good, especially when you get a lawnmower fresh out the box, to change that oil in the lawnmower, because there's lots of people that do say that there are metal shavings that come in the oil that is already inside of it. Now with that being said, I honestly, for a while when I would get these lawnmowers, and if you're wondering why I get so many lawnmowers, well, it's because I'm in the military and I move a lot. And sometimes I go to a house where I don't need to have a lawnmower. So I end up selling the lawnmower on Facebook Marketplace or whatever. And then when I get to a new place, I get one. Yes, it seems kind of counterproductive, but when you're constantly moving to different houses that are different sizes, you really just don't want to take that much extra stuff with you. That's why I get a lot of these lawnmowers. Back to the oil thing. I have done multiple times where I have used a lawnmower for a few years without ever changing the oil on it first. But I had a lot of comments from a lot of people that says it's always good to change the oil when you first buy a lawnmower. Now, if you're curious on how to actually change the oil on a lawnmower, drop a comment, let me know, and I will show you a video on how to properly change oil on one of these smaller push lawnmowers. Okay, with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into some demonstration and talk about how we actually operate the lawnmower. All right, so I don't want to insult anybody's intelligence, but operating a lawnmower is actually very simple. So if you already know how to do this, you can go ahead and skip over to the demonstration. But just to show you how to operate one of these, number one, you want to make sure that you have gas. So obviously, you got to fill it up with gas. That's where this is right here. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to prime it up. That's what this little rubber thing is right down here. So you're going to go ahead, prime it up, press this thing a few times, get that fuel pumping, and that's pretty much just kind of feeding fuel into the engine there, so that way it can go ahead and light up pretty easy. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to pull this down right here, this little line right here. This is almost like you think of it like your ignition. It's not going to run unless this is down. You try to do it like this, nothing good's going to happen. You want to hold this down, and then you are going to pull. Now from there, you saw it took me about 3 to 4 pulls to go ahead and get that lawnmower cranked up. Once that lawnmower is cranked up, you can go ahead and start using it. And if you want to stop it, all you got to do is release that handle. Once you release it, engine cuts off, good to go. All right, so pretty simple, pretty basic. And if you want to know more, please drop a comment, let me know. We'll go over some more various aspects, but let's get into the demonstration portion, and then I'll give you my overall impression and review. All right, please don't mind my sweatiness. I just got done cutting the front yard of my portion before recording my final thoughts and review on this lawnmower. So number one, let's talk about ease of use. I would probably give this like a 7 or 8 out of 10. It's really simple to use, very, very simple. The only reason why I would probably give it a 7 or an 8 rather than a 9 or a 10 is because it does take a little bit to crank up, I've noticed. So example, that hyper tough lawnmower that I got, that really cheap one from Walmart. If I used that thing, all I had to do was crank it up one time. If I was gonna say, you know, cut my front yard and then shut it down, move to the backyard, all it would take was one pull and bam, it was back on. But for this lawnmower, I've noticed it does take about 2 or 3, sometimes maybe even 4 cranks every single time. So for somebody who may be physically weaker or gets tired really fast, it may not be as good. That being said, it's still a pretty easy to use lawnmower. Mobility on this thing is amazing, and that is because of those big, fat, chunky wheels that it's got on it. Honestly, I could not believe the difference between that small little Hyper Tough and this lawnmower when I started pushing it around my yard. That little Hyper Tough with its tiny little wheels would get caught in every little crevice of my yard, and it was kind of annoying, but I didn't realize how annoying it was until I got this lawnmower and started pushing around. I'm like, oh my gosh, my long cut time is getting way shorter. It's getting way easier. And honestly, it's because of those big hefty tires on the back. Once again, I know they're not tires, they're wheels. Next, I want to go over maintenance. Maintenance, very, very simple on these easy little push lawnmowers. You don't got to do too much to it. Obviously, if you had a battery operated one, it's going to be real easy because you don't got to worry about changing oil and all this other stuff. But For a gas lawnmower, this is a real easy lawnmower to maintain. 10 out of 10 all day long, just simple little oil changes every now and again. They recommend you do it, you know, roughly every 6 months or so, but honestly, you can get away with doing it for a year. Don't tell anybody because people tend to flip out about it. There have been some lawnmowers that I've used for 3 years without ever changing the oil on once. Not that I recommend it, it was just ignorance, but hey, they still work. Okay, so overall, there aren't a lot of downfalls with this lawnmower, but I do want to tell you about one thing I did notice, and it was actually today when I was going through and cutting my grass. So down here in the good old state of South Carolina, we had a lot of rain over the past few weeks, and with that, the yard is a little bit more saturated and the grass is taking a little bit longer to dry off, especially in those shaded areas. Now, with that being said, I am never an advocate for cutting your grass wet, but if you got a normal job like me where you only have the weekends to cut your grass, or maybe you take trips or something like that, and you got to get it done at some point in time, then you got to do what you got to do, sadly. Just make sure you clean your lawnmower off afterwards. But I did notice that this lawnmower does struggle with slightly longer grass when it is dewy. I'm not talking about soaking wet, you know, dripping after a storm rainfall. I'm just talking about normal day dew. And I'll show you exactly what I mean. And that's exactly what I mean. So while it does have a stronger engine than some of the other bottom line lawnmowers out there, do be aware it is not a super beast. And if that really is a deal breaker for you, you can simply just raise the deck of the lawnmower up using those little pegs, get a higher cut, and that should fix the problem of the lawnmower constantly stalling out from the longer wet grass. Granted, that does mean that your lawn will stay a little bit longer than you typically would like it, but hey, you know, deal with what you got. Last thing, I'm going to give my overall rating, and no, this is not a super intrinsic math problem using the other ratings. Basically, I would give this lawnmower an 8 out of 10 overall, just because one, it is a pretty decent lawnmower when it comes to it. Yes, the price is a little bit steeper when you compare it to other smaller, cheaper lawnmowers out there, but between the ease of use, the mobility, and honestly, you usually get a better product out of these stronger lawnmowers, that I would say it is worth the price, at least for me, somebody who lives in the South and is having to cut their grass every single week throughout much of the year. So through the magic of the editing process, I realized that I totally did not close out that video. So anyways, I just want to say thank you if you watched the entire time. Thank you for putting up with my horrible video and editing skills. And thank you for, you know, just literally watching to this point if you actually got this far. So I hope you enjoyed the review. And if you did, please, by all means, like, share, leave a comment. It really helps with that whole algorithm thing. And if you really feel inclined, please do subscribe, because that kind of just motivates me to do more reviews on more things. Anyways, I'll talk to y'all later. This is Tim with Artillery Life, out.